9.1 Animal Matters 1. Animals, birds and insects. Young ones. 1,
Dog, puppy,
2,
Goat, kid,
3,
horse, foal,
4,
cow, calf,
5,
hen, chick,
6,
lion, cub,
9.2 Where they live. 1,
A hive. Bee.
2,
a stable, horse,
3,
A cage. Canary.
4,
a kennel, dog,
5,
A tank. Goldfish.
6,
a nest, blackbird,
9.3 The noises they make. 1,
squeak, mouse,
2,
Bark. Dog.
3,
neigh, horse,
4,
Meow. Cat.
5,
roar, lion,
6,
Grunt. Pig.
7,
twitter, bird.
9.4 Animal parts. 5,
A beak.
1,
Claws,
2,
A fin.
7,
fur,
8,
Hooves.
6,
horns,
10,
Paws.
9,
a shell,
4,
A tail.
3,
wings.
9.5
Have you ever had a pet?
Sadly not. I've always wanted to, but I've never been able to because I'm allergic to cats and dogs.
Are you? I'm not, but my sister is, which is why we never had them either. But my kids really want a puppy, and so does my husband.
I think you probably should then. What's stopping you? You ought to go to a rescue centre for abandoned dogs.
I already have.
So you really are going to get one then?
I suppose so. I'm not 100% convinced, but the children are.
9.6 1,
Do you like dogs?
No, I don't, but my husband does.
So does mine. We have 3 Alsatians.
2,
I went to Kenya last summer.
Lucky you. I'd love to go there. Did you go on safari?
No, I wanted to, but it was a business trip and I didn't have time.
3,
Ali doesn't eat meat or fish, does she?
She does eat fish sometimes. She loves shellfish.
Ugh, I don't like shellfish.
Neither do I. It's so difficult to eat.
9.7
Good afternoon and welcome to A Question of Food, where each week we look at a different aspect of food and the food industry. This week we're talking about veganism. Well over 500,000 people in the UK now describe themselves as vegan, an increase of over 500% in 10 years, and 20% of people under the age of 35 have tried a vegan diet.
9.8.
Good afternoon and welcome to A Question of Food, where each week we look at a different aspect of food and the food industry. This week we're talking about veganism. Well over 500,000 people in the UK now describe themselves as vegan, an increase of over 500% in 10 years, and 20% of people under the age of 35 have tried a vegan diet. So, what are the arguments for and against veganism, and is it here to stay? We have two experts here to explore the arguments. Jimmy, a vegan activist who also runs a vegan restaurant in East London. Hello, Jimmy.
Hello.
And Simone, a dietitian and omnivore.
Hello.
Jimmy, let me start with you. What, in your view, are the main reasons for the explosion of interest in veganism?
For me, there are two main reasons. The most obvious reason for veganism is to do with animal rights, and this argument has been around for a long time. In fact, writer Leo Tolstoy had this to say in 1886, and it sums up my feelings very well. A man can live and be healthy without killing animals for food. Therefore, if he eats meat, he participates in taking animal life merely for the sake of his appetite. And to act so is immoral. I think this is at the heart of why so many people are now becoming vegans. The idea that killing and eating animals and modern farming practices are simply immoral. And the second big reason is that being a vegan helps the environment. It reduces your carbon footprint. There was a recent study at Oxford University which concluded that adopting a vegan diet can reduce your carbon footprint by 73%, which is far more significant than cutting down on flights or buying an electric car.
Simone, can I bring you in here? These both seem pretty strong arguments. What do you think of those 2 points?
Well, the first point, the point about your moral position, I do think that's a very personal decision, whether to eat meat or not. And I personally, I don't think it's immoral. But I think everybody needs to decide for themselves. An unfortunate aspect of veganism is that it's easy for vegans to believe that their position is morally superior, and so they make meat eaters feel morally inferior, which of course meat eaters resent. So immediately you have this conflict, which I really think is unfortunate.
Jimmy, can I ask you, do you feel morally superior to Simone?
Yes. Yes, I do feel superior. I do think that veganism is a morally strong position, but it's not about being better than other people. It's just about doing what's right.
And Simone, what about Jimmy's second point about the environment?
Well, broadly speaking, Jimmy is right. Being a vegan can reduce your carbon footprint, but it isn't quite as simple as that. Some foods that are a real favourite with vegans, like avocados and quinoa and soya beans, are grown a long way from the UK. I mean, the biggest producers of quinoa are Peru and Bolivia, and avocados come to the UK from Mexico, the Caribbean, Africa, and soya beans from Brazil. And there's a significant environmental impact associated with bringing those foods to Britain, and they are often not grown in a sustainable way. Growing food crops can be just as damaging to the environment as farming animals. And there's also the problem that demand for those foods is now so high in, for example, Britain and the States, that there isn't enough left for the country that actually grows the food. So, for example, Kenya has recently banned the export of avocados because they were all going abroad, with none left for the Kenyans.
OK, Simone, that's a valid point. As a dietitian, what do you think are the health implications of being vegan? we hear a lot about vitamin deficiency and so on. Is that something we should be concerned about?
Yes, it is true that it's harder to maintain a balanced diet if you're vegan, and that may present a serious health risk, especially for children and teenagers, who I absolutely believe should not be vegan. Humans are designed to be omnivores, so obviously if you eat a bit of everything, like me, then you get plenty of vitamins and minerals and so on. But vegans have to really make sure that they get enough of these things. The classic example is vitamin B12. If you're vegan, you need to take B12 supplements or eat food fortified with B12. If you don't, you can become quite ill quite quickly.
Oh, of course you do need to take a bit of care, but that goes without saying. There's nothing wrong with taking vitamin supplements, and lots of people who aren't vegans do the same thing. But I think you're missing the important point, which is that overall, being vegan is hugely positive for your health. Less risk of heart disease, less risk of diabetes. And how many vegans do you know who are overweight?
That may be true to some extent, but fundamentally, I still don't see why anyone would choose to eat a diet that doesn't deliver the right nutritional balance for the human body.
One thing I want to ask you both about is what you could call the social side of being vegan. I mean, eating out. That can be very difficult.
Well, actually, I think that problem has disappeared now. Being vegan is becoming more and more mainstream, and most restaurants offer vegetarian and vegan options.
Well, one if you're lucky.
Yes, and that's only true in big cities and in certain countries. I mean, there are some countries where avoiding all animal-based food is more or less impossible.
And, Jimmy, what about when you go round to somebody's house for dinner? Does that create problems?
Oh, not at all. Most of my friends are vegan anyway, and all my other friends are really getting into trying vegan recipes.
I'm afraid you'd have a problem if you came to my house. I think it's really inconsiderate to expect the host to cook something specially for you, or for everybody to have to eat the food that only you actually want. You'd expect me to cook something special for you, but would you be prepared to cook a steak for me?
I'm sorry, but I wouldn't.
So, can I ask you both just to round off? Is veganism the future?
Absolutely it is.
I think it'll always be an option, but it'll never be for everyone.
(9.9) 1.
The most obvious reason for veganism is to do with animal rights.
2.
And the second big reason is that it reduces your carbon footprint.
3.
The point about your moral position, I do think that's a very personal decision.
4.
And there's a significant environmental impact associated with bringing those foods to Britain.
5.
We hear a lot about vitamin deficiency and so on.
6.
It's harder to maintain a balanced diet if you're vegan.
7.
And that may present a serious health risk, especially for children and teenagers.
9.10. 2. Animal issues. 1.
In your country, are there any organisations that protect animals and their environment, or animal charities?
2.
Are there any animal rights activists who organise protests against the use of animals for entertainment, product testing, or medical research?
3.
Are there any local or regional festivals where animals are treated cruelly?
4.
Are there any national parks or conservation areas where animals live in the wild?
5.
Are there any endangered species?
6.
Are there any animals that are hunted for sport?
7.
Are there any zoos or centres where animals are being bred in captivity in order to reintroduce them into the wild?
8.
Are there any animals that are kept or transported in inhumane conditions? For example, veal calves.
9.11. Common adverb collocations. 1.
It's something I feel very strongly about.
2.
Well, I don't feel particularly strongly about it either way.
3.
I have to say I am completely against zoos nowadays.
4.
I don't entirely agree with you.
5.
Well, I'm absolutely convinced that the animal does not want to be there.
6.
I'm quite sure that kids could get the same amount of pleasure from seeing animals in the wild.
9.12. Preparing food. 1. How food is prepared. 18.
Baked figs.
7.
Barbecued pork ribs.
11.
Boiled rice.
1.
Chopped parsley.
2.
Deep-fried onion rings.
10.
Grated cheese.
9.
Grilled fillet of fish.
17.
Mashed potatoes.
8.
Melted chocolate.
4.
Minced beef.
16.
Peeled prawns.
3.
Poached egg.
6.
Roast lamb.
20.
Scrambled eggs.
5.
Sliced bread.
12.
Steamed mussels.
15.
Stewed plums.
19.
Stuffed chicken breast.
13.
A toasted sandwich.
14.
Whipped cream.
9.13. 2. Utensils. 5.
A baking tray.
10.
A chopping board.
1.
A calendar.
3.
A food processor.
2.
A frying pan.
11.
A bowl.
6.
A saucepan.
7.
Scales.
8.
A sieve.
4.
A spatula.
9.
A whisk.
9.14. 1.
Do you remember the name of that new Mexican restaurant?
2.
The table over there in the corner might be a bit more comfortable.
3.
I can't drink any alcohol because I've just taken some anti-allergy medicine.
4.
Are you going to have the steak again, or do you want to try something different?
5.
When you're baking a cake, it's really important to preheat the oven to the right temperature.
6.
If you don't know what courgette means, look it up in the dictionary.
7.
I always want to eat something sweet when I'm feeling miserable.
8.
If you have cooked and raw meat in your fridge, it's important to keep them separate.
9.
I love having Sunday lunch with all the family.
10.
It was a really expensive restaurant, but I thought the food was pretty ordinary.
9.15.
How to eat out. Tip 1. Always order the fish. Really good fresh fish is very hard to find, very hard to store and keep fresh. You've got to really cook it as soon as you buy it, or there's no point. It's often fiddly to prepare and very smelly to cook. It's what restaurants are for. It just amazes me that people will go into a restaurant and order the steak. A thing you can buy almost anywhere, keep for weeks, and cook however you like without doing anything to it, and it'll always basically be okay. Tip 2. Never eat the bread. An ex-girlfriend of mine eats nothing all day. She claims she doesn't get hungry. So, whenever we meet for dinner, she is utterly starving and gobbles up the entire bread basket and 3 pats of butter without pausing for breath. Then, halfway through her main course, she starts poking about and saying, "I don't know why they give you such large portions. I'll never eat all this." I just don't know why people eat the bread. You shouldn't be that hungry. Ever. Bread is not a first course. It's a breakfast food, an accompaniment to certain terrines. But in an expensive place with a TV chef and a whole range of exciting things to chew on for the next couple of hours, why would anyone want to fill up with bread? I always tell them as soon as I arrive to bring no bread. But sometimes they do, and you must tell them to take it away. Tip 3. Have the vegetarian option, but not in a vegetarian restaurant. As a rule, the best vegetarian food is cooked by meat-eating chefs who know how to cook, rather than by bearded hippies. For this reason, if you want good vegetarian food, go to a normal, that is, omnivorous restaurant. There may not be much choice, but personally, I would much rather restaurants focused on doing 1 or 2 things brilliantly than offered a whole load of stuff that was just about okay. Tip 4. Never sit at a table outside. Why on earth would you want to eat outside? I suppose in a hot country where there's no air conditioning, it might be nice to sit outside in the shade overlooking the sea. But on a busy London street? Crazy. Go indoors. Also, in most restaurants, the outside tables are ruined by smokers. If you want to eat outside in London, take sandwiches and eat them in one of the wonderful parks. Tip 5. Insist on tap water. We have invested years and years and vast amounts of money into an ingenious system which cleans water and delivers it very cheaply to our homes and workplaces through a tap. And yet, last year, we bought 3 billion litres of bottled water. That's just free money for the restaurant. So don't order mineral water. Ask for a jug of tap. Tip 6. How to complain and get a result. Complain nicely, politely, apologetically, but firmly and at the very moment of disappointment. I'm awfully sorry to make a fuss, you might say, but this fish really isn't as fresh as I'd hoped. I really can't eat this. What else might I have as a replacement that can come quickly? There's simply no way you can lose with that. The end result is likely to be free main courses, a jolly time, and an amicable departure. Tip 7. Be nice to the staff. Just be nice to them, that's all. You should always be nice to everybody, obviously, but if you're not, make being nice to staff in restaurants your only exception. Don't flirt with them, and don't ask foreign staff where they're from. Just smile and say please and thank you, and look at them when you're ordering. And then shut up and eat.
9.16. 1.
It's often fiddly to prepare and very smelly to cook.
2.
So, whenever we meet for dinner, she is utterly starving and gobbles up the entire bread basket and 3 pats of butter without pausing for breath.
3.
I don't know why they give you such large portions.
4.
But in an expensive place with a TV chef and a whole range of exciting things to chew on for the next couple of hours.
5.
Personally, I would much rather restaurants focused on doing 1 or 2 things brilliantly than offered a whole load of stuff that was just about okay.
6.
So don't order mineral water. Ask for a jug of tap.
7.
I'm awfully sorry to make a fuss, you might say, but this fish really isn't as fresh as I'd hoped.
10.1. 1.
Off and running. Brilliant start from Lorraine Stewart. She's flying out. Browning's getting into her stride. She's trying to chase her down. Now Harris is coming up in lane 6. She's coming up on Stewart. She's coming hard, but Stewart is going to get there. She dips for the line. 10.72. Stewart takes the gold in a new championship record.
2.
Brian Marks to putt now, and he's had a tough time in this competition. Nothing has gone right for him, and we haven't seen him make a long putt in a while. He would love this to go in for a birdie and try to get his round back on track. It must be 32 feet with a slight break to the left, and he needs enough speed on it. He's hit it well. It's looking good. Come on, come on. And he makes it. That was beautiful.
Three.
Surely the attack is going to come soon. Fernandez can't afford to wait any longer. She doesn't have a sprint finish. She needs to go now. Coming to the foot of the final climb of the day, 8 kilometres at an average gradient of 12%. This could be very interesting. And she's gone. Fernandez is gone. Brancart is trying to follow, but the gap is opening. And Fernandez has 20 metres, 30 metres, and she looks round once and she knows this is her chance.
Four.
The Cuban has got the arm lock. Osaka desperately trying to keep his elbow turned. Oh, that was a moment of real danger. He needs to settle himself here. He might have hurt his arm. 30 seconds to go now. This is fraught with danger. Every time you take a step towards your opponent, you put yourself in danger. But you've got to take that step to win the gold.
5.
What has happened to Australia? They cannot contain Brazil. They're trying to come back at them, but Australia have lost their rhythm. Very consistent throwing from Brazil. There's another three-pointer. That's a nice move. They're running away with this now. Only a few seconds left. And that's it. It's 2 more points to Brazil, and it's all over. Brazil are safely through to the semifinal, 71-40.
6.
Fantastic start from Ivanova. Triple Salchow, triple toe, great elevation on both jumps, and again, amazing elevation. That was a flip. She looks so relaxed. She's completely in control here. Triple flip, double toe, a little bit of a stumble, but she comes out of it well. Last jump coming up now. It's a double axel and... Oh no! She she's down on the ice and she's back up, but that's going to be the end of her hopes for a medal. That is a disaster for Ivanova.
.2
So, Ollie, have you always been interested in sport?
Yes, I have. I was always a huge sports fan as a child, particularly tennis and football. They were the ones that I played. My mother was a tennis player, my dad was a footballer. So those were the sports that I got into. But I always loved watching most sports. My grandfather, both of my grandfathers were huge fans of sports, so watched a lot, and then just became very curious about the language of television, sometimes even more than the action of the sport.
Do you do a lot of sport or exercise yourself?
I could tell you yes, but that would be a lie, especially about the exercise bit. I do probably not enough exercise. I play football. I play tennis a little bit, but that's about it. And I would never, because I'm a sports commentator, I would never call myself an athlete because I know what an athlete really is, and it isn't me.
What made you want to be a commentator?
When I was a child, I commentated on everything that was happening. That's the thing that unites all sports commentators. When you go back to their childhood, they're the ones that commentated when people were playing football in the playground. When I was playing sport in the back garden, I was adding a running commentary to it. I made cassette tapes that I've still got when I was 11 years old of radio broadcasts of pretend football matches. So I always had this love of language. My grandfather was somebody who absolutely loved words, and I think in my family we grew up with a passion, a curiosity for language. So that was always there. And then when my love of sport developed, I think the two married together very nicely.
What's your favourite sport to commentate on?
My number one is definitely gymnastics, which I love because of the variety. There's just so many different forms of gymnastics. It could be trampolining or aerobics or rhythmic gymnastics. That's beautiful and exciting to do so many different things.
Do you have to be an expert in all the sports you commentate on?
There are some sports that you have to have extremely strong knowledge of. Gymnastics is full of technical moves, complex rules, complex scoring. You have to know the vocabulary, you have to understand it.
I'm sure.
There are other sports that are definitely something you can commentate without being an expert. For example, a race. Now, if you're doing a race in swimming, in horse racing, in athletics, it's still just a race. The most important thing is tell the story of the race.
What would you say is the most difficult thing about commentating?
Shutting up is definitely the hardest thing about commentating because pictures are beautiful. Sound is beautiful. The sound of a crowd is a beautiful thing. The sound of a player screaming with excitement when they hit the winning point is wonderful. It's very easy as a commentator to forget that there are pictures. And we use a phrase in the broadcasting world. We say, let the picture breathe. And I think that's really important to do.
That's so interesting. Do you ever disagree with the referee or the judges when you're commentating?
Absolutely. But the important thing is do not destroy them. As a broadcaster, do not attack referees or judges. They are human beings. They are doing a job. They get it right sometimes. They get it wrong sometimes. Unless a referee is obviously cheating, which is very, very, very unusual, then you have to be understanding and kind because athletes make mistakes, referees make mistakes, commentators make mistakes.
So, have you ever seen anyone, a player or an athlete, cheating during an event?
Very occasionally. I would say that most athletes actually have great integrity. They are very honest people. It's rare that it happens. When it does happen, it can be quite difficult, actually. You have to choose your words very carefully because maybe to me or to you, it's very obviously cheating, but it's not to them. Sometimes a footballer dives, but did they dive or did they fall? And actually, it's not my job to try to inhabit the mind of the athlete and tell you what they were thinking at the time. Where it is also difficult is maybe if an athlete has returned after a ban because they had taken drugs or they had cheated, then you have to refer to that ban, but it's important not to be stuck in the past too much.
What do you think commentary adds to the experience of a television viewer?
Commentary should be furniture, not wallpaper. I think that's a term that we use quite often in broadcasting. It should make it easier for the viewer to place themselves in the action. It shouldn't just be decoration. It shouldn't be something that distracts you from the really important things. If you use too many words, if you start to tell meaningless stories, then the viewer will switch off from the things that you're saying. I think the point of commentary is to provide drama. It is to help explain why things have happened, and it's also to introduce new viewers to a sport.
I see. What are the most memorable moments of your career so far?
You never forget your first Olympic Games. The feeling of arriving at the stadium, staring up at the Olympic rings, probably the most famous logo in all of sport. You look at it and you realise this is what you are doing. You are part of the Olympic movement, and that's incredible. And the Olympic Park is full of energy. The atmosphere is unbelievable there. And you get to broadcast the greatest moments of people's careers at the Olympic Games, which is an incredible feeling.
10.3.
Can you tell us about one really special moment that you remember?
There was one very special moment for me that happened in the Rio 2016 Olympics. Sometimes it's not the biggest moments. They're not always the most memorable. Sometimes it's small things that have a particular story. And there was a Norwegian wrestler, a gentleman called Stig Andre Berger. He was 33. It was his third Olympic Games, and he had never even come close to winning a medal in his previous attempts. He was a very good wrestler, but he had never come close. Just before the Olympic Games, he discovered that his mother had terminal cancer. And he made it home from the qualification tournament for the Olympic Games in time to see her for the last time. And he promised her in that last meeting that he would win her an Olympic medal. And we got to the Olympic Games in Rio a few months later, and every match he won by the most narrow of margins. It was so tight and so close. And then he won the crucial match that gave him a chance to go for the bronze medal. And when he won that match, he looked up into the sky and he just pointed upwards. And I realised that this was now the time to start telling that story, because I didn't want to start telling it too early or make it too sentimental. So I mentioned the story about his mother. And then he won the bronze medal. And it was so close. And at the end, his coaches he burst into tears. His coaches ran on. They were three of them lying on the ground, holding each other, crying. And I was able to put into words that story of the promise he'd made to his mother. I felt very honoured to be the person trusted to tell his story.
Wow, what a moment that must have been. Thank you so much, Ollie, and thank you for sharing that story with us.
10.4. 1.
Gonzalez is coming into the final straight. She's in the lead with 100 metres to go.
2.
Scuba divers attach lead weights to their belts to help them dive.
3.
We were sitting in the front row, so we could almost touch the players.
4.
The coach had a row with the owner of the team.
5.
People who row tend to have very well developed biceps.
6.
He was still putting on his boots when the match started.
7.
She's been putting beautifully and is now 6 under par.
8.
If you tear a muscle or a ligament, you may not be able to train for 6 months.
9.
As she listened to the national anthem, a tear rolled down her cheek.
10.
Some footballers never seem content with their contracts. They're always trying to negotiate better terms.
11.
Sports drinks often have a high sugar content.
12.
He wound the tape tightly around his ankle to prevent a sprain.
13.
You could see his head wound bleeding as he was taken off the pitch.
14.
If you use a high-tech swimsuit, you'll be able to swim much faster.
15.
It's no use complaining. The umpire's decision is final.
10.5. Part 1.
Why did you decide to leave the UK and live abroad?
Well, actually, it was David who convinced me it's a good idea. A long time ago, going back, I was studying at my final year at University of Warwick, and David was working at that time in Mallorca, and we met in England, and then he returned to work in Mallorca, and then it was we kept in touch by letters, and it was very easy to be seduced by the lifestyle he had there, the lovely swimming, the barbecues in the mountains, the fishing for octopus. So I was finishing my essays in the library windows covered with rain. And so when I graduated, I went very happily out to Spain to be with him. And we both got jobs in Vigo in Spain, working as language teachers in a private school. And we had a lovely time. We worked, and when we weren't working, we spent the time discovering the area, going out on our bikes, and learnt to windsurf. So that was a great year.
So a very happy introduction to Spain for you. And how did you both end up in Myrena?
Well, it was by chance, really. We'd been working as English teachers for several years, 10 years perhaps in my case, and we realised that we had the opportunity to take a year off, a sabbatical year, as it were, with a view to then going back to teaching again. And we had a friend who had a small house in a village in the mountains south of Granada, and he'd agreed to let us rent this house for next to nothing for a year. So that's what we did. But whilst we were there, we wandered around and cycled around and finally stumbled on this little village of Myrena, where we live now, and fell in love with the village, fell in love with the house that we lived in for a while at first, and realised at the end of the year that we were having a ball and enjoying it too much, really, to want to go back. So at that point we realised that we had to find a way of earning a living, because we didn't have any money. And so I got a job in Granada, in fact, just teaching for a year or so, and then we opened what's now Las Chimeneas, our little hotel and restaurant.
How integrated do you feel in the local community?
Well, one of the things that made me feel very integrated, and indeed very, very proud, in fact, was being invited to join the local council. And I worked for 6 years as the deputy mayor, and not necessarily a very good deputy mayor, but I kind of enjoyed it, and it was I consider it as an honour to be involved and asked to get involved in local politics, and it's a useful thing as well, rather than just being on the outside protesting at decisions taken after the event. It's quite useful to be part of the decision-making process as well. And
I think for me, the thing that really made a difference was when we had children, because especially as being a mother in the village, it meant that you met other mothers, and people felt that it was a reason to talk, and our children are friends with the other kids. They come around to play now. So, yeah, that was a big difference for me.
And having the business as well, because people can see that we're actually working, and we're working alongside our neighbours, because, we're lucky we're enough to be in a position where we've been able to employ quite a lot of the local villagers as cooks and chefs and taxi drivers and so on.
10.6. Part 2.
What do you like most about living in Myrena?
The obvious thing, and almost the cliche, is the weather, but you can't underestimate that. I mean, the weather does affect your everyday life, and also simple things like the incredible clear skies and the light. But I think it's something more than that. As long as I can remember, I always had an hankering. I really wanted to live in a very small community. I remember even as a child, it was something that I always had an ambition to do. And I think something about living in a very small village, everything seems very kind of human, very manageable. You know everybody. You literally know everybody in the village. And what's also been great the last few years is that we bought some land which is filled with almonds and olive and fruit trees. So we spend a lot of time down there and learning how to farm like the locals do, because they have very complicated watering techniques. So we've had to speak to locals and learn how to farm the land.
Are there any downsides to living there?
The travelling, isn't it? We have to spend probably more time than we'd like in a car to buy something simple. On the one hand, it's great being away from shops. It's like a real kind of consumer detox. But on the other hand, when you actually have to buy something, it means you have a long journey, which I could do without.
And there's lots of paperwork as well. Spain is a very heavily bureaucratic country as well, and so there's lots of certification and permits and so on that we've got to get together, and that always means a drive of a couple of hours to get to Granada, the local centre, to get paperwork sorted out.
Is there anything you miss about the UK?
Well, obviously we miss friends and family. I mean, that's the big thing, but we're lucky we live in a nice part of the world, and so we get lots of visitors who come out and stay with us, which is nice. And then, often it's very trite, silly little things that you miss. I mean, I miss pubs with carpets and soft lighting and, polite dog walkers, that kind of thing. So,
and the fact when we come back, we often come back to London. So what I really like about the UK is that sense of cultural diversity. Just travelling on public transport in London, you're very aware of the very wide range of people living here, which obviously you wouldn't get in a small rural community. And of course, the great thing about that is being in London is, you can choose any kind of restaurant. That's a big treat to come back and be able to choose what kind of food you want to eat.
Do you think you'll come back to the UK one day?
Well, you never know. I mean, we never took a decision that we would stay in Spain forever. So it was kind of by chance, by accident, that we've been in Spain so long. So we've never really ruled it out. It'll be tricky, I think, to come back, largely for economic or financial reasons. Britain's a very expensive place to buy a house at the moment. And then, of course, there's the boys. The boys, two sons are now aged 7 and 13, so they were born and brought up in Spain. So they would be really uprooted for them to take them back to the UK, I think, now. That would be perhaps a bigger hurdle.
Yeah, for sure. That's the main reason why I can't see us going back, is definitely Dan and Tom. But of course, I think once you've spent 15 years building up a business, then also that's something you don't want to easily turn your back on. Of course, the other thing we need to think about is the impact of Brexit. It might be that we end up applying for Spanish nationality. I think for now we're just going to see how things go.
10.7 1.
He'd agreed to let us rent this house for next to nothing.
2.
We wandered around and cycled around and finally stumbled on this little village of Mairena, where we live now.
3.
We're having a ball and enjoying it too much, really, to want to go back.
4.
As long as I can remember, I always had an hankering. I really wanted to live in a very small community.
5.
Well, on the one hand, it's great being away from shops. It's like a real kind of consumer detox.
6.
So we've never really ruled it out. It'll be tricky, I think, to come back, largely for economic or financial reasons.
7.
To take them back to the UK, I think, now. That would be perhaps a bigger hurdle.
8.
I think once you've spent 15 years building up a business, then also that's something you don't want to easily turn your back on.
10.8 1.
It was David who convinced me it's a good idea.
2.
The thing that really made a difference was when we had children.
3.
What I really like about the UK is that sense of cultural diversity.
4.
The main reason why I can't see us going back is definitely Dan and Tom.
10.9.
What I hate about my job is having to get up early.
The reason why I went to France was that I wanted to learn the language.
It was her mother who really broke up our marriage.
It's the commuting that I find so tiring.
10.10. 1.
What I don't understand is why she didn't call me.
2.
The thing that impresses me most about Jack is his enthusiasm.
3.
The reason why I left early was that I had an important meeting.
4.
The place where I would most like to live is Ireland.
5.
It was the neighbours that made our lives so difficult.
6.
It was then that I realised I'd left my keys behind.